The movie is set in an alternate world where black people have taken up all the liberties. They are considered the superior race, while the whites are frowned upon and are given menial jobs. The blacks are responsible for much of the scientific discoveries, the majority of the country's economy, and their contribution in the field of music, cinema, and art. On the contrary, the whites are regarded as problem-causing people who are involved in illicit dealings, violence, and other serious crimes. The movie opens up with a group of black people enjoying dinner at a wealthy businessman, Thaddeus Thomas's house. While having dinner, Thaddeus talks about the white people with his business partners and mentions that they are genetically inferior to them and deserve to be deprived of a good quality of life. The scene then shifts to a white candy factory, where we are introduced to the main character and a laborious worker, Pinnock. After completing the working hours to be in the good books of the black seniors, Pinnock accepts the task of delivering a package to Thaddeus's residence. On the way, he comes across a rich neighborhood, which consists of exclusively black people. Moments later, Pinnock arrives at the entrance of Thaddeus's residence and is allowed to enter by a white female servant. Trying to deliver the package, Thaddeus climbs up the stairs and stands in front of the house. While waiting for someone to receive the package, Pinnock starts looking around the big mansion. Surprisingly, he notices Thaddeus's wife, Megan, at the window, naked. Thaddeus, who is speaking over a phone, catches Pinnock peeping at his wife and becomes enraged. After delivering the package, Pinnock drives to his house and on the way, notices some white people being bullied by the black police officers. Later, he arrives home and makes a failed attempt to try and stop his rude neighbors from making loud noise while partying. Pinnock then enters his house, where he is greeted by his little son, Donnie. Following this, Pinnock's wife Marcia also arrives there with their little daughter and welcomes him home. Together, they prepare dinner, and Pinnock promises that he will get a promotion soon so that they can shift to a better neighborhood. On the other hand, there is a gathering at Thaddeus's house. Once the discussion is over, Thaddeus stops the VP of the candy factory, Lionel, and suggests he send someone else other than the peeping guy to deliver his package the next time. The following day, after finding that the foreman's position at the factory is vacant, Pinnock visits Lionel's office and requests that he promote him. Lionel takes his request casually and tells him that he will look into it. Seeing his careless attitude, Pinnock reminds him of the extra shift that he has been putting up lately. He also mentions about the delivery that he conducted at Thaddeus's house the day before. As soon as Lionel hears this, he asks Pinnock to take a seat and politely informs him that he can no longer continue working at the factory. Pinnock is shocked to hear this and tells Lionel that he cannot fire him without any reason. Lionel, however, tries to make Pinnock understand that the decision will be good for him in the long run. When Pinnock insists on knowing the reason, Lionel reveals that the owner of the factory, Thaddeus, noticed him peeping at his wife when he went there to deliver the package. In the next scene, Pinnock can be seen standing outside Thaddeus's house, ready to peep again, requesting the white servant let him talk with Thaddeus and clear the misunderstanding. The servant lady walks up to Thaddeus and informs him about the situation, but as he is in a meeting, he refuses to talk. As a result, Pinnock is ignored at the entrance, despite begging for over an hour. Devastated, Pinnock visits the employment office to find a new job, but all he can get is low-paying work, which won't be sufficient to support his family. Later, as he drives toward his home, exhausted, his car breaks down in the middle of the road and he is forced to walk. Just then, some police officers arrive and ask him to put his hands behind his head. They force him down and ask him to show his ID, as his appearance matches with a high-profile robber. As the commotion goes on, some white people gather around the place and demand the officers leave Pinnock alone. Soon, they start throwing wine bottles at the police, and as a result, they get enraged and beat up Pinnock before driving away. Following this, Pinnock arrives home injured, and Marcia is shocked to see him in this condition. Pinnock briefs her about the injustice he just suffered, and in turn, Marcia informs him that the landlord has threatened them to evacuate the house if they fail to pay their rent soon. One early morning, the Pinnock family is woken up by the landlord, who has arrived there with a couple of police officers. The officers inform Pinnock that they're here to request them to evacuate the place with their belongings immediately. After the Pinnock family gather their important belongings, Pinnock's mother-in-law chastises him for being a bad husband and informs him that there is no room for him at her house. Leaving him alone, the mother-in-law drives away with Marcia and the kids. Having nowhere to go, Pinnock can be seen waiting for Thaddeus outside his entrance gate. A while later, Thaddeus arrives and asks Pinnock what he is doing. Realizing that the old man doesn't recognize him, Pinnock takes out a revolver and points it at Thaddeus. He then enters Thaddeus's car and tells him that they need to talk. Pinnock hands him a piece of paper and asks him to provide him with the amount of money written there. Thaddeus tries to escape, claiming that he doesn't have that kind of cash on him, but Pinnock forces him to drive to a nearby bank. Moments later, the duo arrives outside a bank, and Pinnock threatens Thaddeus to talk to the teller standing at the window. Following the order, Thaddeus tries to converse with the white teller and ask for some money, but the teller refuses to help him, mentioning that the bank is closed for the day. This enrages Thaddeus, and he threatens the teller to call his superior. But before things can escalate, Pinnock forces Thaddeus to drive away. Following this, they drive to a jungle and stop near Pinnock's truck. After exchanging cars, they once again resume their journey, but this time, Pinnock takes the steering wheel while Thaddeus is ordered to stay still. After some time inside the car, the duo arrives outside Pinnock's neighborhood, where he used to live. Here, Pinnock mentions that his neighborhood is better than Thaddeus's area. He also blames Thaddeus for his present miserable condition. Surprisingly, Thaddeus is oblivious to what Pinnock is saying and asks for an explanation. Hearing this, Pinnock laughs and tells Thaddeus that he is the one who came to deliver the package some days before. Pinnock then accuses Thaddeus of giving orders to Lionel to fire him. Thaddeus immediately refuses the accusation, mentioning that he only told Lionel to hire a new delivery guy. He then offers to settle the matter over a call with Lionel. However, Pinnock refuses the offer and decides to wait until Monday, when the banks are open. In the next scene, Pinnock takes Thaddeus to a local restaurant and buys some food there. At the same time, some white boys arrive and start cursing loudly. The restaurant owner tries to send them away, but the boys refuse to move. Later, when the boys stare at Thaddeus, Pinnock suggests that they leave the place. As they are walking out of the restaurant, the white boys block their way and capture them. Pinnock tries to take out his gun, but one of the boys hits him, throwing away his gun. Hearing the commotion, the elderly restaurant owner walks outside holding a rifle and shoots at one of the white boys, killing him instantly. Seeing this, the boys become terrified and flee the place. Meanwhile, Pinnock picks up his gun and prepares to leave, but Thaddeus, who is still in shock at what he just saw, keeps on staring at the corpse. Following this, Pinnock takes Thaddeus to an abandoned building and asks an old man, Stanley, to let them stay for the night. At first, Stanley refuses, claiming that he is scared of black men, but when Pinnock fires his gun in the air, Stanley realizes he's afraid of all men, and he reluctantly agrees. The next day, Pinnock again takes Thaddeus to the nearby local restaurant for dinner. There, Thaddeus asks Pinnock to let him make a phone call and inform his family that he is alright. He also tells Pinnock that he will fulfill his demands and requests that he let him go. However, Pinnock tells him that he cannot release him, as he doubts that he will inform the police. Moments later, when Pinnock goes to the counter to refill his soda cup, Thaddeus runs away, prompting Pinnock to chase him. In the next scene, Thaddeus deceives Pinnock by entering one of the roadside house premises. After he realizes that Pinnock has run past the house, he walks up to the house's door and knocks on it a couple of times. When no one opens the door for a while, Thaddeus breaks the door glass and gets inside. There, he finds a telephone and immediately calls his wife, Megan. He tells her to call the cops, but when Megan asks about his location, he is clueless. Suddenly, a white girl walks up to him and recognizes him as a robber. She calls her father, informing him that someone has broken into their house. Thaddeus tries his best to make the girl understand that he is not a robber, but the girl picks up a gun and points it at him. In no time, her father arrives, and sensing the danger, Thaddeus throws a box at his head, injuring him. Seeing this, the little girl shoots at Thaddeus, but misses by an inch, causing the perpetrator to run away. Meanwhile, Pinnock hears the gunshot and rushes towards the house. When he arrives there, the father informs him that a black guy broke into their house and has escaped. Following the direction provided by the father, Pinnock finally spots Thaddeus. After a bit of chasing, Pinnock successfully manages to catch Thaddeus and bring him to the abandoned building. On their way, Thaddeus tells Pinnock that rather than complaining about his lost job, he should move on with his life and try to find a new job instead. He accuses Pinnock of failing to accept the circumstances and trying to get away with it. Unfortunately, this further enrages Pinnock, and he is compelled to tape up Thaddeus's hands and tie him around a wooden pole. This time, he also wraps a thick piece of cloth around Thaddeus's mouth so that he does not speak. On the other hand, the police arrive at the broken house and start searching for Thaddeus around the area. At the same time, Stanley arrives and informs Pinnock to run away from the building, as the cops are looking for him everywhere. He also suggests Pinnock let Thaddeus go, as he is not injured and the police might reduce his sentence for this. Despite this, Pinnock is adamant on waiting until Monday and refuses to relinquish Thaddeus. Just then, when he takes a look at Thaddeus, he finds him gagging and coughing. Afraid, Pinnock approaches Thaddeus and opens his taping and the cloth wrapped around his mouth. Unfortunately, Thaddeus is already unconscious by this time. Seeing this, Stanley starts packing up his clothes and prepares to leave. However, Pinnock cannot leave Thaddeus in this condition, so he presses his chest to revive him. After a couple of attempts, Thaddeus finally starts breathing. Despite everything that they have been through, Pinnock tells Stanley that they should take Thaddeus to the hospital. Moments later, Thaddeus can be seen inside Pinnock's truck, en route to the hospital. Sadly, the truck breaks down. Desperate to help Thaddeus, Pinnock gets out of his truck and asks her to lift with other people. One lady offers to help them, but when she notices a black man being dragged out of Pinnock's car, she drives away. With no sign of any vehicles driving around and seeing Thaddeus's miserable condition, Pinnock takes out his gun and fires some shots into the air. He also shoots at some nearby stores and breaks the glass, starting an emergency siren everywhere. Moments later, Stanley notices a police car approaching and suggests that Pinnock leave the place. Pinnock tries, but after looking at Thaddeus's miserable condition, he changes his mind and decides to stay with him until he is taken to the hospital. Stanley tries to convince Pinnock again, but the latter refuses, and he is forced to escape alone. Following this, the police officers arrive and ask Pinnock to put his hands behind his head. Unfortunately, they notice a gun in Pinnock's hand, and without questioning him, they shoot him to death. Thaddeus is looking at all this, but he can do nothing to stop the officers. He feels sad for Pinnock and starts crying. In the final scene of the movie, Thaddeus visits Pinnock's mother-in-law's house and meets with Marcia. He tries to introduce himself, but Marcia tells him that Stanley has already told her everything about the incident. Hearing this, Thaddeus offers an envelope full of money, mentioning that it is for her family. However, Marcia refuses to accept the money and returns it. She then closes the door on his face and heads inside. The movie ends as little Donnie stares at Thaddeus while he drives away in the car. Sorry for not making jokes in this video, it just didn't feel funny to me. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.